Go ahead and call Marshall County Fiscal Court to order July 7th, 2020. First on the order, guest, John, or Chad, I'm sorry. Come on up, Chad.
Oh, man.
We like to do that to you every time, Chad. It's kind of a running joke in the office. Good morning.
Good morning.
Chad from BFW.
Yeah.
I don't go that far.
We'll give you a Rivercrest update this morning.
Yeah.
Just a couple things on the agenda, I think, for today. The first one, kind of the standing update on the Southwest 1 construction of the water and sewer infrastructure down there. Construction is continuing on. Had some good dry weather, hot weather, but good dry weather here as of late. And they've gotten pretty much, they should be completing the gravity sewer on the industrial park site this week, setting all that stuff. And then that way the sewer will be there for United Systems to be able to tie onto and then be ready for the other development there on the adjacent property across the industrial park boulevard right there on site. From there, it's my understanding the contractor is going to shift their gears over to the interceptor sewer over there starting by the golf course and then working their way west towards Wood Trace when they get done there. So they're moving right along. The water system itself, there is water to the site now. The booster pump station is installed. It's not been tested yet. We're going through the process right now, having the pump rep actually go through some checks on the pump just to make sure, because it's been sitting for so long, make sure nothing's seized up, make sure everything's tight on it before we put that thing into service. So kind of going through those checks, but they do have water on site right now. It looks like there's about a little over 40 pounds of pressure over there at the United Systems site right now without any booster pump station on and active at this time. So on that, they've got the lift station in. They'll be working on the sewer lift station down there as well, coordinating with West Kentucky Rural Electric right now, trying to get power run to the booster station site and the lift station site so they can start working on the electrical at both of those as well. There's a good picture of construction going up right there.
Yeah, we wanted to put this up to show everybody this is a live feed. Andy Lepistow and Josh Tubbs, they've been working to get a live feed for the construction that's going on out at Southwest 1. And folks can go. I know Brad's put this out on our social media page, and I think on the web page as well, or if not, we'll get it there. But this is United Solutions, and it is a live feed. So they're currently out there putting it up, and folks can log in and check it out. Other communities, what they've done is they've shown the timeline, and you can go back and you can speed it up from the beginning to the end. And we kind of felt like that'd be a good thing for us to do. Should here in the near future see the next site across Megafit. They should be starting theirs in a couple of months. So we just wanted to throw that up there.
Sure. It's all going well. The most impressive thing right now, I think the elevator shaft is pretty neat. Just going out there and seeing a big tower standing out there. So.
Is this at 641 looking?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I think the pond is like right here.
Over there, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And then you're going to see what we call the boulevard and the 641 lane construction that we just approved. So they're going to be starting on that here in a couple of weeks as well. So there's a lot of activity out there.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Am I going on? Oh, that's fine. That's fine. Good to have a visual whenever we stand up here.
Yeah.
It was nice. As far as the other things on the project, you guys have gotten a copy of our recommendation for payment on Merco's 7th pay request on the project. Have that. Does anybody have any questions on that while I'm here as far as the progress or percent completes or anything like that on the job?
You have it on here?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
We haven't
It
seen
did
it.
come in late. I apologize for that, but
Do you need it today? We need to do it today. Oh, okay.
all right. As far as the any other status on that project, we're just continuing on. Contractor's has done a lot of cleanup work. If you guys do any constituents that are asking about restoration of their properties, MERTCO did a round of that early this spring. They will be coming back and doing another round of it. And whenever they get done with the project in the fall, whenever we get into better seeding times, we've had a couple calls. I know the city's received a couple calls about that, and just want to keep everybody calm, let them know that they're not done. They haven't finished their restoration work yet, and they will do another round of that before they're done over there. All right. If there aren't any other questions on the Southwest one, it's my understanding you can come in here today, that you might have a couple questions and revisiting the Oak Level Water Study that was done a few years ago.
Yeah, I asked Chad to come in to give the court a refresher on what we did as a court. I think that was probably 2 years ago.
End of 17, beginning of 18 when we
Yeah.
finished up on it. Yeah.
As far as going out into, it's the old West Marshall infrastructure, and trying to give us an update as a court with the Oak Level Tower, because there's a lot of folks that have asked, can we get water to that tower? And so Rivercrest was hired by the court to go out and work with Benton to identify some issues. So I asked Chad to come back and give this court an update on what they did on that project, or on that review of that system. So if you don't mind, Chad, just give us an update
Sure.
or a refresher.
Yeah, this most of my update's going to come from a letter we submitted in the end of January in 2018. And the study was performed in the fall of 17, and then we prepared a report in the beginning of 18 based on the summary of our findings of that study. So basically the focus of the study initially all focused around that water tower out there, and whether or not first of all, answering the question why there wasn't water in the tower and what issues were found back several years ago whenever the tower was built, and why the water wasn't turned on to it. And so what we did initially as part of the study was really go through the system west of the parkway, looking at the water lines, looking at valves, hydrants, and just checking pressures and flow throughout that system to see where the pinch points are in the system. Based on the information we were presented with from the city, sounded like they had some issues and some restrictions where they couldn't fill the tank, and that was the genesis of the purchase of the booster pump station that was placed over there by the city's Cones lift station next to the hospital. And in turn, that booster pump station wasn't turned on because they were concerned about their infrastructure and asbestos cement water lines headed out Simpsonia Highway that have already had a lot of history of main break issues, and they didn't want those lines to continue to blow out of the ground by boosting the pressures up even higher. So in 17, Rivercrest, as the judge mentioned, we teamed up with the city of Benton just to review the system. They're the ones that know the systems. We actually went with them, drove all the lines west of town, and operated the valves. Checked the valves to see if they were partially closed completely, or open, or operational. And we hooked up pressure gauges to the hydrants. And we checked every hydrant we could get on west of the parkway, all the way out to the tank site. And eventually, we actually even coordinated with another utility to get a pressure recorder that we left out at the tank site for a 2-week period of time, just to monitor what the pressures are, just to validate what pressures the city was telling us versus what's actually being seen in the field on 5-minute intervals throughout the course of the day over a 2-week period. And then we also, as part of this, we put together a water model of the system, a hydraulic water model, and this field study was used to gauge the effectiveness or the quality of the water model that we had built. We built the water model based on topographic data, elevation data and length data that we were able to put together for the city and their water system. So in doing all that, we had a pretty good check of our water model. We were able to gauge what the model was telling us sitting in the office versus what they were actually measuring in the field. And at the end of the day, what we found was there was some discrepancies between some of the pressures that we were hearing from the city and the pressures that we were actually seeing in the field. And the results were actually pretty promising, to the tune of, it looks like they can get water into that tank. And it may take some operational changes on the city system. The city's actually got 2 water towers right now that they operate, and they're different elevations. The Oak Level tank is at a different elevation from those 2. So to prevent from overflowing the tanks, everything's based on elevation and pressures, but the way it's set up, if their system's set up to fill their main tower right there on 641, excuse me, on the parkway, if they continue to feed water without shutting the valve off, they're going to just spill water out on the ground. The elevations are that much different. They'll waste a lot of water without proper valving and operations in their system. So the study concluded that we need to have some follow-up discussions with the city and the county and just really talk about the operations of the system, do a little bit more field investigation with the system out there west of town, and just make sure, all right, when the time's right, when the tank has been cleaned, the tank's been sitting there mothballed for several years, it would need to be disinfected and cleaned again by a professional services group just to get that tank ready so you could put potable water into it. Once that was done, then monitor the system again, allow the city to make some operational changes at their water plant, and then just go from there. Right now, the lead in to that is once you get water into the tank, what are you going to do with it? Right now, not very many customers out there that are tied to any lines off of that Oak Level Road water main that was installed as part of the project. So the usage would be very low, similar to what y'all have experienced down in the Jonathan Creek area. You'd have a water tank down there full of water, but you don't have any people to buy it, so the water goes bad, and then you got to just dump it on the ground because you don't have a good source of potable water for your customers out there in the area. So there would need to be, just some future planning, looking ahead on where the customers are going to come from, maybe operate the tank at a half full level, just to keep from having excess water out there in the area. But from a pressure standpoint, our study showed that it appears there's adequate water pressure out there to put water in that tank.
There are a lot of people out there with bad wells. I do think there would be a lot of customers, and anytime we can add water anywhere, we're certainly opening up the possibility for development, because from a real estate standpoint, if you have to put in water and septic, that pretty well deters anybody from any kind of investment related property, and a lot of people from building, because I mean you're putting money in there that there's not going to be much return on, pretty much from an investment standpoint with speculators and that kind of thing. But there's a lot of bad wells out there. I do know that firsthand. I live out there. So I think that's one of those things that we would see way more than what we realize in the long run. And I did have a question for you on that. Does that need to be tied into, because I know the city of Benton's putting new lines out there, even to Arant Road, I believe, which I think they're turning and going down Arant. Does that need to be tied in to that tower? Is that ultimately what needs to be done?
Yeah. We're not working on the projects. I'll just say that first. The BFW, Jason, so they're actually working on that project with the city, and they've actually worked with Rural Development on some funding of that project. So I don't know the full scope of how they're going to approach that job. Our recommendation, based on some studies that we've done, is yes, to take that all the way out Arant Road and take that new line from the 12-inch water main that's at the hospital now, and take that new main all the way out to the tank site from there.
And that would eliminate the pressure issue. I know there was pressure issue
There's
related to
a number
that.
of improvements, and it's probably better suited for more of a roundtable discussion with y'all. Back in 2018, Rivercrest also looked at development out in the West Marshall area. We worked with the city, and the city actually drove the roads out there and counted houses, potential customers along those lines. And we put together some mapping and some budgetary estimates for them that kind of showed a comparison of, if you put a water main extension along this corridor, you would spend X amount of dollars and you'd pick up X number of customers. So it was kind of a cost-benefit analysis, so to speak. If you put in a mile of water main, you can pick up 5 customers on this line, or a mile of water main over here, you could pick up 15, and kind of gave them some direction there for some capital improvements, how they could look at the system, how they could pick up customers, for the most bang for your buck, pretty much. I don't know how that plays out, but we looked north of Oak Level Road and south of Oak Level Road, kind of west of 58, that whole area out there west of town. And we looked at those and really just tried to look at the roadmap for future expansion. We kind of put it together based on our engineering judgment, how this thing would be phased together. You asked about the pressure and flow issues. There's a lot of things that need to happen. Replacing the line from the hospital out to the tank along Simpsonia Highway will help. It would also help to tie the Oak Level line into the line on Simpsonia Highway. So right now, you've got a main 8-inch feed that goes at Oak Level Highway to feed the tank, and that's the main feed for the tank. The line on Simpsonia Highway, due to its size and the issues they've had with it, it really doesn't provide a lot of water to that tank right now, and there's really not a good interconnect between the Simpsonia Highway and the tank right now. There's a couple little feeders, but there's not a true connection from Simpsonia Highway, other than Lynn Nelson Road and Ivy Road, which are well east of the tank site.
Right. Okay.
Now.
Thank you.
So it's kind of beefing up the system, and several projects need to happen for future development in that area.
I don't think you'd have any problem finding customers out there. I know that for a fact. That's something I've heard from day one is water, water, water.
Mhm.
I don't think you have any problem finding people out there that hook up.
All right.
It's just getting it to them. That's the
Sure.
big thing.
And sometimes, just, that petition to the
Get that.
county and the city
Right.
is, hey, we need
Yeah.
to get water and let's
Yeah.
do something. That helps out a lot. And I know they're doing that in Jonathan Creek quite often, getting a number of customers to sign up a statement, hey, we'll tie on as soon as that water's here and available.
So you put together within this,
Kind of a roadmap, so to
something,
speak.
yeah,
Mhm.
as far as amount of customers and cost and
Yeah.
what made, that's pretty,
Mhm.
that would
It's
be helpful.
preliminary, but, kind
Yeah.
of based on a cost per foot, looking at, obviously not design level, but this many feet of pipe, this many dollars per foot, and this many customers would be picked up based on that extension.
Well, I think too, for the court, it's a process, just like everything else. And there's a lot of steps that have to be done first before we get to running a line to somebody's house. And that was the biggest thing, I think, when we first looked at it. I know in 16, the first thing that we dealt with was the booster pump. It was changed to 3-phase, and it wasn't tied in, it wasn't hooked up, and we were just, the county funded that booster pump for the city's infrastructure. And, the question was always pressure, but that's why the court, we said, let's send engineers out with, Benton and try to find out what it's going to take to get, because this is an old infrastructure. It's the old West Marshall infrastructure. And what is it going to take to get water to the tower, and then from the tower to those that are nearby the tower to tap on. We didn't want to be like Brewer's Tower right now. I think that's a 150,000 gallon tank. And the line extension from there, there's not enough customers to use the water, as Chad was saying. And so it's a work in progress. There has been things being done, and it's just going to take time. But I think the biggest thing for the court is to see what's already been done, and then two, for the folks that are out in that area to understand. I know I've had some folks come by the office, and I've explained to them what Rivercrest has done and what the city's trying to do to improve that existing line. But the goal is at some point to get water to that tower and then make it to where it's beneficial for not only the city, because it is their infrastructure, but when we do get that line to somebody's house, that we don't rush into it and we have problems that we got to deal with. So,
Sure.
But
I'd be
no,
more than
the-
happy to sit down with you guys and go over the mapping and the numbers that we put together
Great. Appreciate it.
back around 18. Anytime you guys are available, just let me know. And in this letter from 2018, if you guys need another copy of that, I can present that to you again. That way you guys can take a look at it and see pressure issue, and the results of that study.
You'd mentioned 40 pounds at Southwest One without the pump.
Yeah.
What should that be?
We were asked to provide up to 70 pounds of pressure
Okay.
as part of our design. So when we repurposed that booster station down there at the tank site, that's what the design point was.
Gotcha.
Was to be able to provide 70 pounds.
Okay, thank you.
That was kind of a magical number that the TVA presented to us during the early stages of the process to entice people to come in and let them know that you got 70 pounds of pressure, and that's typically adequate for a lot of development, commercial, industrial type applications.
Great.
I think the booster station is actually capable of more than that, but it was designed for providing 70.
Any other questions? All right.
All right.
Appreciate you, Ed.
Thank you.
Thanks,
you.
John.
Thank you.
Johnny boy.
All right, next on their guest is Chris Freeman. Give us an update on our grants and some other things. Good morning,
How
sir.
y'all doing?
Morning.
Good.
Yesterday made 14 months that I've been here, and we've done quite a bit of things in the 14 months that we've been here. Got a list of a few of those things I kind of want to go through this morning to give you all an update. Something we've been working on for probably the past 3 months or so is expanding the first responder program with the fire departments and EMS. We're supposed to go live Wednesday morning, the 8th, and that provides fire response and rescue squad response to certain high-priority medical calls to assist EMS. We've gotten all 9 fire departments and a rescue squad to come on instead of just the 4 or 5 that we had to begin with. So it's a good program, and it should provide the same level of care no matter where you live inside the community. Brian Cutsinger and all the fire chiefs and rescue squad chiefs have worked extremely hard for the past few months to get that going and get that done. I'm pretty proud of how we all came together and worked through some differences and stuff to get that done and beneficial for everyone. So that was a good program. Brad, if you'll put that picture on the screen. When I first got here last year, we added a couple of things. Y'all were in the works of putting text to 911 live when I got here, and Rapid SOS. I brought Rapid SOS with me when I came. This is a free program. Commissioner Sprague's probably recognize this area. That's the go-kart track down there next to your office. And the cool thing about what you're seeing there is this supplemental program that's free to 911 centers. This was an accidental call to 911. And it actually tracked the guy. We got the information prior to the phone actually ringing, so we knew where he was at. And as you can see him going around the go-kart track out to his car and actually leaving. So that's the supplemental information that Rapid SOS brings. And kind of a low-level way this happens is they purchase the information that comes into the cell phone tower, which contains GPS from locations from the handset. So when the 911 phone rings, we get that on a supplemental screen from a website, and it gives us that information, and it updates every so often. It updates faster than our phones. Right now, our phones are taking up to 14 seconds to ring the first time inside the 911 center. It's an issue that we need to resolve, working with AT&T to do that. But we're seeing these calls come in and seeing the location and sitting there waiting on the phone to ring now. And this is one of those instances where that happens. So it's kind of neat to see that actually occurs while you're on the phone. Now, for people watching or people who will see this later, this is not technology that we can have to spy on you. We don't have access to it until the phone rings into the 911 center, and we lose access to it at a random time after you disconnect. It's somewhere between 5 and 7 minutes that the phone will stay active with the tower and provide that information. We never know when it's going to cut off, but the average is between 5 to 7 minutes. There's a lot of benefits with Rapid SOS. I've been working really, really hard with families on the spectrum since I got here, and some of the things they wanted was a way to log information about those children, those family members with autism and other issues that are on the spectrum. Well, in sending some information back and forth with Rapid SOS and talking to them, they also have now a family medical portal, which allows you to enter information into this. It's free to the customer. It's free to 911. So when the phone rings, we actually have access to medical information and important information that may help save one of those family members' lives. I met with them a week before last out at the park. I believe it was a week before last. I think Brad was there after meeting with them for something about the park. They were very enthusiastic. We put some test information in there, made some test phone calls. The information drops right there. And it's information like how to build rapport with the child if the first responder comes in contact with it, how to keep the child from running away or hiding, because that happens a lot. What would trigger them to run away, what would trigger them to engage in a conversation, what some of the dangers may be, medications, things of that nature. Very important, very good information to have in the event a child wanders off or in the event we encounter someone or have a phone call from someone that is on the spectrum. It helps us build that rapport, helps us help them faster. So they were very enthusiastic about that, very, very happy to do that. We plan to do something here in the very near future with a large-scale meeting with them when we can, and we're going to instruct them on how to put the information in, how it best fits, and how it will be most beneficial for the dispatcher when they actually pick up the phone. That way everything's uniform. We know where to look for everything. But that was a really good one. So I think some of you will remember back last year, early on in the summer, we had a snake bite call that came in from LBL. These two technologies, the text messaging and rapid SOS, led to us finding that person and being able to actually give medical help when a cell phone call wasn't able to be completed. That person was actually in Trigg County, but it hit the tower and was sent to Marshall County. And Marshall County just happened to have those extra services, those things that were needed to assist that person and get them help. So these are very good programs. We can also send text messages out in the event we get a 911 cell phone hang-up call, because we have to make sure those people are okay, and we have a bunch of hang-up calls. It's accidental. It happens, as you can see. Sometimes they won't answer when you call back. So if you can send a text message prior to that call and say, hey, this is 911, we were just checking on you, we received a hang-up call. So when you call back, a lot of times they'll pick it up because they think they're immediately in trouble or they're going to get in trouble for something like that. We just want to make sure that they're okay. So that's helpful in that.
I want to demonstrate something real quick. You said 14 seconds.
It's been taking up to 14 seconds to actually call.
So if I have an emergency, and I think folks that are at home in the court, I think we need to understand. If I have an emergency, and walk me through this. If I call 911, it takes 14 seconds for the dispatcher to actually get the call.
We're on a remote system that's hosted elsewhere. It's hosted in Madisonville and in Pikeville, and our data has to travel on those circuits to Madisonville and to Pikeville, and it's been taking up to 14 seconds here lately. And at least at a minimum 3 to 5, we can see it on that application right there before we ever get the first ring into the 911 center.
Okay. I'm going to start my clock and just so we can have an example of how long 14 seconds is. I know time matters in a lot of cases. Doesn't matter if you're in law enforcement, struggling with somebody, training is out there that talks about time is important. But this is 14 seconds, and I'm going to start now. That's 14.35 seconds.
Now the phone would just be ringing.
And now the phone's just ringing. And obviously there's more time, I'm assuming, regarding the information.
Yep.
More importantly, when we're talking about cell phones, and this is where I don't watch too much TV, but you see these shows where somebody picks the phone up and they immediately get access. If I'm on the interstate, and we do have 2 interstates in our community, and I'm on the phone, because I get questions all the time. Somebody will say, well, I was on the interstate, called 911, but I got Paducah. Why is that so? But as I'm traveling, 14 seconds, and I'm on the phone, and I'm waiting for 911 to pick up, my location from the actual event that I may have seen something is greater. I may be, 14 seconds, a mile down the road, depending on how fast I'm going. All of those things, others maybe 3 miles down the road, but all those things tie in. So to me, that was what was profound about this, is that 14 seconds, when there's obviously technology out there that is quicker. Can that be?
I'm going to interrupt you for just a second and add to that. So that 14 seconds that it's been taking, there's another 20 to 30 seconds to get a location on a cell phone call without rapid SOS. The technology, that's the way that it works. It triangulates a cell phone. So the first thing that comes in when that 14 seconds is up is a cell phone tower location. With a cell phone tower location trunk number, there is no contact back with that person and no actual location back for that person. It takes to 20 to 30 seconds for our phone system to get that triangulation for that first location. And the first location is usually not great. It's usually a little bit further out. So 14 plus up to 30 seconds, you're approaching a minute now. If you're driving 60 miles an hour, you're almost a mile away from what you've seen. So that's kind of profound in the day of cell phones and things of that nature. So there's a push nationwide to change all that. With the Next Generation 911 funding and things of that nature. And basically what happened is you took a cell phone that has more technology in it than what it took to send a man to the moon. You carry it in your pocket every day, and it's using a 50-year-old system and tricking it to allow cell phone calls. So they're using the same technology used to send long-distance phone calls to get a 911 call to the same 911 center that it needs to go to. It's old, antiquated technology, but this is not just here. It's everywhere that's happening. That's what the cell phone did to 911, and it's the best fix. So moving forward into Next Generation 911, they're going to move away from the way that we route calls now and move more toward GIS, and actually have GPS and GIS locations through the IP-based system. So we're moving away from copper wire, moving away from those camera trunks from long distance, and moving more into IP-based systems which carry metadata that have GPS locations inside them from various routers, various other things, and that's how your phone will actually be routed to the correct 911 center. So long story short, most everything will be obsolete in 911 when this happens, when Congress finally gives the money. It's looking somewhere between $12 billion to $13 billion is the study that Nina done a year and a half ago at what that's going to cost nationwide. And that's just to improve the infrastructure nationwide. That doesn't trickle down to the state's cost and things of that nature. So, but that delay will go away, and that delay with the getting information out to the first responders will also go away. But like I say, that's several years coming down the road, 3 to 5 years probably before that gets running. But that's kind of where we're at with NG911. I mean, everybody wants a definition of it, and it's kind of paused. There's not really a definition of NG911. You have to look at what your community is, what it needs. Ours is major chemical industry and things of that nature, and what technology can help those particular areas. So NG911 is different in different communities, what it needs and what they're asking for. So that's the first thing that you have to do. But mainly, it's going to be GPS routing of phone calls instead of selective routing on old camera trunks that doesn't work for cell phones. So after a year-long, 14 months now, of labor-intensive work, we were able to send 8 chapters of policy and procedure that's to Brad to make sure it's in accordance with the administrative code in the areas that it needs to be. We started when I first got here with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children's policy. We're a Missing Kids Ready 911 center. There's 6 of those in the state of Kentucky. There's 301 across the nation, and that includes law enforcement agencies and public safety answering points. 301. It's a very hard policy to get. It's a very hard accreditation to get. We treat every missing child the same regardless of the circumstances till we know otherwise. We treat them as missing and endangered until we know otherwise. It allows us to work ahead of the police officers, get them the information they need, and let the police officers and the first responders do what they need to do to find the child. We just provide the information in a timely manner and assist in any way that we can by putting out flyers, putting out teletops, entering the child before the report is actually brought back to us, because statistics show we have less than an hour. In most cases, less than an hour. 96% of all fatalities that happened in less than an hour. So it's it's a very near and dear program to my heart. I've had a couple of bad missing child experiences in my 25, almost 26 years. A couple with the state police. One of the first Amber Alerts in the central Kentucky area was one that I worked with a partner of mine. It was a juvenile that was taken from the Stanford Hospital, a newborn. She was missing for 16 hours, and they found her in Bowling Green on top of a dumpster. I didn't leave post for 16 hours, even though my shift was over. And this program just, if you're wanting to change the way you do things, you want to get buy-in, you find something that everybody can relate to. And helping a missing child, helping a juvenile, helping somebody that's in trouble is how you do it. It's a very extensive 56-page policy on everything that we do. We do it every time the very same way. My folks have got that down to a science. We're entering folks faster than 39 minutes is where we're at. Around 39 minutes to get a child from start to finish through the process. National Center notified, teletypes out, Facebook post out, child entered. It's pretty great. We're beating the report to neck, which is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. So I just kind of wanted to talk about that, but I led with that policy to get buy-in on the rest of them, because we're trying to get to a level of professionalism to get accredited. So you lead with that policy because everybody can buy in. And they have. They've done an extremely good job with that policy and doing an extremely good job with that and moving forward into the other ones that we did. Let's see. We've had a lot of interest in other counties as we go out and talk to them about regionalism and things of that nature. We get the same response. We kind of want to wait till you get your building done, your infrastructure updated, because we're all in the same boat until that happens. But 5 to 6 counties have shown interest. Several have called back. Some of them quite a distance away. You don't have to be neighbors to do this. With Next Generation 911, with IP-based systems, technology, and things of that nature, you don't have to be border communities to do that. And with space and distance between you, it also allows for resiliency and redundancy, so we don't have to rely on just the surrounding communities that touch our borders. We've talked to folks pretty close to 175, 180 miles away, so they were very interested. My staff and I, since I've been here, we've worked really, really hard to build resiliency and redundancy, something we didn't have when we got here. We had a couple power outages that completely wiped 911 out, completely wiped communications out, unexpected power outages. We had a tree fall at the repeater site in Draftonville. There were no battery backups, generator failed, the battery was dead on it, so we worked diligently to make sure that that doesn't happen again. We've been through 2 successful power outages where you couldn't tell the power was off. We also purchased a handheld radio. In the event we do lose power, we can still page EMS, fire departments, and set off the weather tornadoes, sirens. From that handheld radio, it has the ability to do 2-tone paging and DTMF paging, so if we do lose complete electricity, I can still get firefighters, rescue squad, and tornado sirens set off and people where they need to go. So that's something that we didn't have before, and that was an extremely cheap fix, less than $700 to have that. So we have it. Folks are trained and know how to use it in the event that something happens. Like I say, we have the ability to page those fire departments in severe weather. And here's the part that I'm most proud of. We worked hard for 14 months, and I just got awarded 3 of those Homeland Security grants on the 30th for somewhere in the neighborhood of $120,000, $130,000, which brings the total of money from grants that I brought in 14 months to $310,000, $320,000 in that particular area. So I'm proud of that hard work. My folks have chipped in and helped. So even if something happens to me, and so you got to plan for redundancy and resiliency and everything. If I walk out and get hit by a bus, somebody from our agency can write those grants and move forward. Assistant Director Sheila Day, I gave her a project to write a grant by herself. She got it. First grant ever, she got it. She's done a really good job, worked long hours on it. So she has the ability to apply for those grants, do those things, go find those funds as well.
And
See,
speaking on, let me interrupt you for a second, because I've seen this work in progress, and I've seen Sheila. You can actually see where she sees the opportunity and giving her that opportunity to write a grant, because that's one of the things that I know I've noticed. Actually, even my staff has noticed that there's challenges, and one of the biggest challenges is having the confidence and successfully writing something. And I've seen that in her, and so that's a testament to you, Chris, but also for her putting the hard work in. And so I just want to acknowledge that with her, because I've talked to her, and she's definitely excited about the opportunities that she's been given. So
she's definitely driven, that's for sure. She's impressive.
Yeah.
She is. She's going to be a good fit as assistant director. She's driven. She knows the vision we're going after. She knows how to get it. She knows how to do what needs to be done. I'm very proud of her. Very proud of Rachel, Alex, several others. Andy, who's helped with writing the policies and procedures and those things. Those folks have never done anything like that before. And you write 8 chapters worth of policies, you can't do it by yourself. But it's they've been able to help and assist. And there's several others. I mean, you hand somebody something in there, and they're eager to learn and to do things. So like I say, we were awarded 3 grants for somewhere around $120,000, $130,000 on June the 30th. A little over 310 for the 14 months that I've been here. We started the upfit of the building with the purchase of the raised floor last week. Over the year, we've assisted the rescue squad with communications on the drowning that occurred in February. We assisted the sheriff's department a little while back with the peaceful protest. We were able to move and set up a makeshift 911 center a couple blocks away from the courthouse square and keep track of those guys and help them out. So that worked out well. During the heat of the COVID pandemic, we had a makeshift 911 center, very similar, set upstairs. Nobody knew it was there. If something happened and one of our folks got sick, we had an alternate site to go to. Many thanks to Andy and Chad for helping with that, and Sheila, several others. But if something happened and we had to evacuate that center, we had a safe, clean place to go where those shifts didn't intermingle, and they could actually come up here. And Josh Tubbs, for loaning us his office, he came up to me after that meeting and said, I got space. So we had a full functioning CAD, full functioning phone, full functioning radio, just around the corner in the room over there. So we were able to move to that. Didn't have to use it, thank goodness. Worked out great. And the best part, zero cost. Just a lot of folks with a lot of ideas, spending a lot of hours trying to make it happen, and it happened. And Andy and Chad did an excellent job with that and helped us out. I've been asked by the 911 Services Board. I sit on the advisory council to that board for Kentucky, and they started a new training committee. I was asked a couple meetings ago to chair that committee because of my experience as a training instructor for the Department of Criminal Justice Training. So they asked me to look into what we need to train our future telecommunicators on for NG911, for writing these grants, doing the things that's kind of lacking in what we do. So I'm excited about that. I'm on there with folks from DOCJT, other folks from the advisory panel, so I'm excited about that collaboration to kind of see what we can come up with and see what the board will do to fund some of that extra training that needs to be done, because GIS and things of that nature, it's just not out there for us. The other thing that I'm doing this month, I'm doing an address to the NG911 caucus, which is the congressional staff and congressional members, concerning the effects of COVID on the 911 PSAP, as well as the reclassification efforts for telecommunicators to recognize them as first responders nationwide. We did that a while back here, but unfortunately it didn't get any publicity, any press. That's a big deal for what we do. We're considered clerical, secretarial, but yet we couldn't shut down through COVID. We couldn't stop taking 911 calls and getting responders where we go. We're the first people to hear what goes on. We hear horrible things that we can't see, which makes it worse because at least the person who actually, the on-scene responder, can actually see and make sense of what's going on. We send those folks into harm's way, keep in contact with those folks working that incident, and then take more and more and more. So we never know what our next phone call is going to be, and you never get any closure to any of that stuff. People don't think about the effects of that on a telecommunicator and what they do with it. That's why the longevity of telecommunicators is so short, 3 to 5 years, because there's really no resiliency plan for mental health and things of that nature. So that's what it's about. A lot of people think it's about hazardous duty retirement, things of that nature. It's not what it's about. It's about recognizing the class of people and the job they do and their place in public safety, and providing them the help they need when they get into those issues of PTSD, stress, trauma, things of those nature. Those natures, they don't get that now. They don't have access to those things. So it's more about that. Has really nothing to do with a hazardous duty retirement. So that's kind of what we'll be talking about in that lunch and learn. It'll be over a Zoom meeting. There'll be several folks there. It'll be the second or third time that I've actually addressed that caucus. So it's a good opportunity to show what rural 911 is actually about. We don't get representation like that very often. So I'm looking forward to showing them how it affected us, talking about putting the center in the courthouse and things of that nature, and how most vendors, instead of helping you during the pandemic, wanted to charge you 2 and 3 times what it would normally cost to move your center, and seen it as an opportunity to make money instead of assist through that. And then the last thing we're going to talk to them about is funding. If NG911 was fully funded, we wouldn't have had any trouble moving and shifting phone calls, radio traffic, and those things to other centers and other places. So we'll be talking to them a little bit about funding that $12 billion and asking for that in the future. So I'm excited about that. looking forward to hitting the ground running on those things. That's been 14 months. Several other things, but pretty busy 14 months.
Absolutely. I know we've got on the new business, the South Marshall Fire Tower lease agreement. It's a draft that the court's going to be reviewing, but since you're up here, can you kind of give a summary of this?
I had some notes in here on that, but I seen it further down on the agenda, so I skipped over it. December of last year, we got some money to fix sheriff's radio. COVID hit in the middle of that. Couldn't do any travel, couldn't do any work on it. Shut down the tower project in South Marshall. They built a really nice tower at South Marshall Fire Department and are going to offer us the opportunity to hang that equipment on there. There's monetary cost because we're going to be using their electricity, using their building, using some of their stuff. So in turn for paying that bill, we ask that they keep up some FCC regulations and things of that nature, keep a generator on it. We drafted, with the help of the county attorney, we drafted a lease agreement that'll be presented to them on the 14th at their next meeting. So I believe that's what the judge is referring to. Once that lease agreement is signed, the monies have been put in the 911 budget in this last cycle to pay that fee for not only the sheriff's department, but if we get the grant that I wrote for the fire department repeaters, EMS repeaters, and radio equipment, they'll go there as well. And we'll have that same lease fee for the EMS and the rescue squad repeater as well as the sheriff's department repeater. And once that's signed, then we can move forward, schedule a time to get those things hooked up. But it took a while to get that tower built, properly guy wired, an actual structure to put the things in built below it. They've only been completed about 3 weeks, maybe a month.
Y'all got any questions about that?
Is the radio signal issue that they were having out by the high school area, is that resolved?
And which radio issue they were having?
I know deputies were having an issue with service in that area.
The service issues that they've been logging recently are in the Fairdale and Olive Aurora area. It's been going on since 2016. It will resolve that. What actually happened there was a piece of equipment on Cedar Knob Road was taken off that tower. So as you leave the Draftonville area where the school is, you have a repeater pushing out 80 watts going south. Once you run out as far as it can go, you can't receive anymore. And then talking on a 5-watt portable, when you get out of the car, it can't get back to that. So having a radio infrastructure in Aurora will allow that to push back to that tower.
The tower there at the school?
At the school, yes, sir.
Okay, gotcha.
We're just missing that piece. We have pieces in the north, we have pieces in the middle of the county, but we have nothing south of Draftonville. So as you move out of what that repeater can do, there's nothing in the south that can bring that signal back. And until we put something there, there's nothing that we can do.
Yeah. Well, what I was referring to is right there at the school area.
I'm not aware of anything going on at the school.
Okay.
Are you saying that there's no communication?
I
They
had
can't
somebody
reach the tower?
tell me a few months ago, it's probably been longer than I think, probably 3 or 4 months ago, they had an issue with a radio issue in the subdivision across from the school or in that vicinity.
Was it their car radio or their portable radio?
I'm not sure. I knew we had some things they were working on, moving the fire department, and I thought maybe that had taken care of it.
I wasn't aware of that issue. That's no, maybe I was. I think it may have been Robert Johnson. And, or Robert Johnson brought that issue to our attention. I think it may have been something to do with particularly where they were at, the portable radio, but I can't remember what that was. But we've not had anything except for that one isolated issue there.
Okay.
I do remember that now that you bring that up, but I think that's the only isolated issue that we've had in that particular area. But most of it has been around where 408 meets 68 and south of that particular area where Fair Dillon starts and in that area. So if we get something on that end of the county, we'll see a drastic change. And there may be a couple of dead spots where we may have to add something else later on to fix that or get some mic extenders for the guys for the portables. But
I think
it
they've
definitely
done
fixes
away
it.
with their lapel mics.
That's a lot of it too. If you're sitting in the car and the way the digital signal works, it doesn't penetrate glass, it doesn't penetrate steel, and doesn't work very well inside buildings. So if they're sitting in the car or the mic is actually on their side and they're talking like this, if they don't raise that mic up to try to get out, their body actually blocks the digital signal sometimes,
You
or the
can't get
height
out
and elevation. So
In my office, you can't get out unless you hold the
Yeah.
mic up, and I can yell at you and you
On a
hear me
portable,
before
yep.
you can, yeah.
And that's
Aaron Lane was in a-
digital versus
Yeah.
analog inside a building, and until infrastructure is put inside those buildings and things of that nature, it's just the way it is.
And that doesn't matter where you're at. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah, that's
we
the
probably just
inside
need to get rid of
Walmart
those.
is horrible. It kind of sits down low anyway, but the steel and the glass, it's the difference in the digital signal and the analog signal. You get a trade off on those portables when you go from analog to digital. You can talk through anything in analog.
Yeah.
but-
the repeaters in the cars, they don't work with digital, right? You know how we used to, on the old analog, you'd have a
Yeah.
repeater in your car? You
What
can't do
got
that
doesn't,
now.
no. There's some things that we can look at moving on. We need to get these repeaters hung and see what our issues are at that point in time. But moving forward, we can do some things to fine tune those other spots. But that's kind of where we are with that. So I'm excited to get that project finally done and get to the sheriff where we're not in issues where we're getting them in unsafe situations. It's a bad situation as a 911 communications director not to be able to talk to you guys and going out dealing with some of the situations that they deal with.
Well, when you
Sleepless
get 911
nights.
calls that people's fighting on the side of the road and you don't have any communication with him,
Yeah.
you don't even know he's fighting. I
Yep.
mean, it's bad.
How long will that take, Chris, do you know, on the repeaters?
Once the 14th happens, they sign that agreement. I can schedule it and get it done, and it'll just be what day the guy can get here and what day they can have a guy climb the tower. I wouldn't expect it to be too much longer. Once that's signed, if they don't have any issues with it, for me, I don't want to place that expensive equipment in there without that agreement of
Sure.
things that we need, because we want our equipment separated off where only authorized personnel can actually touch it. That way we don't constantly run down there and have issues with somebody unplugging something. In 25 years of doing this, I've had radio equipment everywhere. Just in Glasgow, I had a piece in the fire department, city fire department, that kept getting turned off. And when it got turned off, we couldn't talk on the fire channel, and I'd have to go to the other fire department, turn it right back on. So until we make sure those kind of things aren't happening, and they're okay with that. So after the 14th, I'll know a little bit more, but I would say probably within 2 to 3 weeks after that, it'll be up and running and going. So we're just the guys chomping at the bit, ready to get it done, and we are too. It's just COVID it set us back in that beginning with getting that tower built and getting this stuff done.
I'm going to, Chris spoke about the grants. I'm just going to read briefly. This is from the Kentucky Office of Homeland Security. These 3 grants were approved. The scope of work, a project to deploy a GPS master clock for time synchronization across center services. That's $9,252 that was approved. A project to replace an end-of-life EMD. EMD is an emergency medical dispatching system. That was $26,931.63. And then the third grant was a project to deploy a new CAD, computer-aided dispatching system, and that was for $97,200. So those are the 3 grants. I'm not going to read all 3 of them in detail because most of the language after that is consistent, but those are the 3 grants that he was talking about. The lease agreement, as we were just discussing, we'll get into that in a second. I know we've sent that. Jason drafted it. We sent it to Chief Searles, and I think their board meeting is next Tuesday or Thursday next week.
July 14th, which will be
Yeah.
next Tuesday.
So they're going to be discussing that. I know that the board has met, and Chris has spoken with the board as far as a contract with 911 to hang that up. That's all taken place, and I think they did the final completion of the actual below the tower, the building that houses our equipment. We're going to put monies into this equipment, as Chris was saying. We want to make sure that it's protected. So that was completed, I think, in June.
It's about 2.5, 3 weeks ago it was completed. So I got
Okay.
air conditioning and everything, electricity ran to it, buildings up, roofed,
Yeah.
all
So-
finished, dried in and everything. So he's now working on putting his equipment inside it. George is waiting on this lease agreement
lease
to be approved by
agreement,
both
yeah.
parties.
And the budget, so those were the 2 main things. So now that that's done, we get this done, we should start seeing that moving quickly, because I know the sheriff's department, I mean, that's you gotta have it, so that's where we're at.
I spoke with Chief Searles yesterday. He got back with me today. I forwarded that email to you. You had a chance to look at that. He had a few minor changes he wanted to the agreement. And I forwarded that to you. You get it? You have
You
that?
probably sent it to the one that don't use. Yeah, I've got it.
You got it?
It was something about you had mentioned being guide, which, I have no clue what that means, but, and I think that was one of the points. He said it's not required to be guide or something.
It's probably short enough that it doesn't have to be, so. I was just trying to, I didn't know the dimensions of the tower, but if it needed to have guide wires, I wanted it to be properly guide, so our antennas didn't wind up on the ground.
This morning, I just got this response this morning.
I forwarded it to your Gmail.
Then he wanted a hold harmless clause put in there. Of course, that's over my head what a hold harmless clause is.
You must have sent it after I left to come up here.
Okay.
I don't get that.
923 is one I sent.
Yeah, I don't get that one on this phone.
Okay.
So that's just a desktop email.
Here, I'll take a picture of this and text it to you.
I got it now.
You got it?
Monty's-
About being guide, if it even matters if it's.
It doesn't, if it's,
Whether-
I didn't know the actual height. There's an actual height that requires proper guide, and I just put that in there to make sure if it was at that height that it needed to be done.
Well, I think too, the high school tower had issues because it's a guided tower, and I think going back and researching what was discussed back, I don't know, however many years ago it was some time ago, but the guidelines were an issue.
I can make those changes now.
Okay.
Okay. And we can come back to this under new business as far as the lease agreement. That way you can get it, Jason, and make the changes. Any other questions, or you got anything else, Chris?
Nope, I'm good.
All right.
Thank you.
Appreciate the hard
Y'all doing a
work.
good job
Thank
down
you.
there. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Under old business, item A, approve the minutes, June 16th, 16th budget workshop, June 22nd, 26th, and 30th, special call meetings.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Old business, ordinance 2017-14 amended sanitation, second reading. Let's see. Ordinance amending ordinance number 2714, whereas Marsh County Fiscal Court wishes to amend 3 sections of ordinance 2017-14 dealing with rates of the Marsh County Sanitation District. Now therefore be it ordained by the Fiscal Court of Marsh County, Commonwealth of Kentucky, that ordinance number 2017-14 is hereby amended to read as follows. Section 5, exclusion of unpermitted discharge into wastewater system. Item D, in addition to ensuring that all unpermitted sources of water do not enter the sanitation district's wastewater system, it is likewise the responsibility of the property owner to ensure that other unpermitted non-water discharges do not enter wastewater system. These unpermitted discharges include, but are not limited to, garbage, plastics, cloth materials, cardboard, metals, or any other substances of any type of material that would or could cause damage to the sanitation district's wastewater treatment facilities or infrastructure. The sanitation district, in its discretion, has the authority to require property owners to install reasonable prophylactic devices or undertake other reasonable preventative measures to effectively block the unpermitted discharge contemplated by this subsection from entering in the sanitation district's wastewater section or system. Section 9, fees, rates, and discharges. Section 9, item D, any public wastewater service charges that are owed to the sanitation district are ultimately the responsibility of the owner of the property to which service is provided. The sanitation district shall have the right and the fiduciary responsibility to use any and all appropriate means to secure payment for its services as provided by law, including but not limited to the right to cut off services on the subject property until all outstanding monies owed to the sanitation district have been paid in full. In pursuing monies that may be owed, the sanitation district may bring an action against the owner of the subject property and/or a tenant who benefited from the wastewater service on the subject property. Notwithstanding any of the foregoing, the rate advisory committee is authorized to establish a reasonable special rate for an extremely high volume governmental entity consumer for purposes of this section. An extremely high volume governmental entity consumer shall be defined as a public entity supported primarily by public dollars, which introduces on an average monthly basis approximately 250,000 or more gallons of flow into the sanitation district's wastewater treatment facilities. The special rate shall be designed to cover the costs related to the duty of the sanitation district to routinely inspect and/or clean prophylactic guards such as bar screens, which may be required to be located on the property of the extremely high volume governmental entity consumer. Are there any questions? If not, we just need a motion or action item on this.
Move we approve.
There a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Under new business.
Get in new business, I'd like to have a short recess.
Yeah. All right, we'll go ahead and move on. Item A on the new business, be my training incentive, and you should have a copy of that. I successfully completed 4 units for the 2020 year. And under House Bill 810 with our training, we put these up there. And I think this was was this an audit? Or was this just a decision to put these out there? I can't remember as far as the training incentives. I think it has to go out there on the agenda. So we put these out on the agenda. So this is mine.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item B, board appointment, and this is for the Kentucky Lake. This is a vacancy for the Kentucky Lake Vacation and Lodging Association. And the way this works within our ordinance, they actually submit 3 names. So the association will submit 3 names. And this is for the Kentucky Lake CVB. And so I recommend appointing Kimberly Lightfoot. She's an owner of a condo in the Cove, private home rental. So she kind of does the Airbnb. They feel that having her on the board will help. She understands. She's registered with the treasurer's office under our new ordinance for trying to capture the fees that are owed with the Airbnb type businesses. So that would be my appointment, Kimberly Lightfoot.
Move to approve.
Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item C, renaming Aurora Community Park. And Justin, I know you reached out to me. If you want to, I'm going to let you speak on that.
Yeah, I think the Aurora Community Park, I've had several folks, Lloyd being one, a few others, suggested that that park be named in honor of Jerry and Brenda Searles. There were none two bigger advocates of the Aurora community than Jerry and Brenda Searles. When I came to work in the judge's office, you wanted to get something done out of Aurora, you called Brenda Searles and it got done. So I think that'd be a fitting tribute to them.
Okay.
We actually, as our Realtors Association, have an award that is for community involvement, and it is named after Brenda because of the same dedication she had within our Board of Realtors. So I agree with you, and being from there, she went to church with my grandparents there and was extremely involved in everything that happened in Aurora, so I'm with you, Billy.
I didn't know Mr. Searles personally, but I knew Brenda very well. I've been in the real estate business 22 years. She was in there way before I got there. Always very helpful. The lady gave 110% to everything she did, including a lot of volunteer work, and I don't think there could be a better recipient.
I'll put that in the form of a motion.
I'll
All
second.
right, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And we'll get together, we'll do something a little bit more formal, and we'll kind of put something together and get with the court and do a presentation. Yeah, the question is the official name, Jerry and Brenda Searles Community Park.
It's fine, man, fine with y'all.
Fine? That work? All right. Item D, designation of citing nuisance enforcement code officer. You want to talk about that, Brad?
Yeah, I was looking over the KRS that we mimic our nuisance ordinance with, and it designates citing officers for the ordinance. Well, as we looked into it and I spoke with Jason about it, I couldn't cite based on the nuisance ordinance. So when I talked to Jason, he suggested this action.
Yeah, this is basically just kind of a cleanup. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with the way we had it, but just to make sure that it matches exactly what the statute provides. If the court can just designate him as, what do we have it as,
Just the citing nuisance enforcement.
citation officer,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So would that be an addition or an amendment?
I don't think
No.
we have to amend
Or
the
we have to
ordinance.
take an action
Yeah,
making him?
the ordinance already sets out who can cite, so you just have to designate somebody who fits that definition. So you can just a simple vote of the court can do that.
Okay. So we would need an action to identify Brad as the deputy judge as the citing officer to the nuisance ordinance.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Brad, Judge, if I may, would you mind explaining, because a lot of people watching may not understand the process. I know if we as commissioners receive a complaint, everybody's
Yes, sure.
in a hurry and not
Sure.
patient. That's just the life we live. But would you explain that process? It does take a bit to
Sure.
go through the
So
system.
the ordinance reads that I can't do a roving patrol, so I respond only to complaints only. There, you can go to our website and fill out a form for the complaint, and that's basically the start of the process. After I get a number of those, and I think right now there's about 60, I'll go out and check on that property.
Let me
yeah.
stop you there. You mean 60 that have been made in the last?
Since I created that form, which was maybe a
Okay.
year ago. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Wow.
Yeah, so, and of those 60, I would say maybe 5 have come back into compliance. And so that's kind of where we started looking at that citation, is like, well, I can't cite yet, so we were kind of on hold. So back to your question, the complaint comes in, I'll go see that it does violate the ordinance based on those things that are set out by the KRS. And at that point, I'll send a certified letter, a return receipt. In that letter, the nuisance board has said that I can go ahead and send the letter and put a 14-day window on it. So it says you have 14 days to comply or contact me, and I'm more than willing to work with people. Some of these places it'd take more than 14 years to rectify it. So if they say, hey,
14 days, not
for-
14 years, right?
it could be 14 years, 14 days.
Well, it could
There's
be,
a
that's
couple.
true. Yeah, maybe that's not a miss.
So if they call me, make contact, and say I'm working on it, then I'm more than willing to work with them. If nothing happens, if I got no contact, then that's when the citation goes out. The citation is a $50 a day citation until it is rectified. If it never gets rectified, then it goes further into a lien on the property. The people that get complained on can appeal to the nuisance board. So after the citation is made, or actually I've got one that's, that is appealing before the citation's made, they can come to the board. The board sees the property. I take pictures. I tell them what we've done. And from there, they can say, you're fine, don't worry about it, or no, this is a violation, and we move forward with that process. So yes, it is a lengthy process. It takes time. And people that I have contacted, or they've contacted me and said, I've got plans to do this, I'll put a date on there, and I keep checking back with them. So it's not that it may happen tomorrow, but I have a date that I'm going to check on. And if they don't, they know that there's going to be further action taken.
Let me ask you this: if you are sent, if one of those complaints is made specifically to a property, but it is within a subdivision, let's just say, and while there you see other issues that just have not been reported, you can still cite them, or no?
So
let me interrupt real quick, because when the court actually discussed this nuisance ordinance, the main thing that I know I wanted to stress and the court wanted to stress is that government, if you will, is not going out and finding properties to actually. So my answer to that would be the intent of this body was to have a system in place, because there are a lot of folks in our community that do come up to us, hey, this piece of property over here, well, we want to build the platform, but then we step back and let those in the community initiate that process.
Yeah.
So I would say while he's out looking at one piece of property, the intent of this body was not for him to say, oh, there's one
another
over
one.
there.
Yeah.
So if you show up to my, I know if you show up to my house, someone has filled out a complaint.
Yep.
It's not just that you
That's right.
drove by 62.
If I'm going to your
looked
house,
over and-
I probably passed 5 that are probably in violation as well.
Right.
But again,
But they're not
there's not a
been
complaint
cited
that's
by it.
filed.
Okay.
They don't get responded to. And so people know, I mean, anybody can fill out a complaint form. So people ask all the time, well, why am I being complained on with my neighbor looks worse than mine?
Yeah.
Again, I didn't get a complaint on your neighbor. If you want to complain on your neighbor, go right ahead. But that's not for me to pinpoint those people.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Yeah.
Good questions. I'm sure
we
you
get-
guys get quite a few.
Yep.
They're out there, and I feel like we've put something in place that's fair for everybody.
Yeah.
And not encroaching.
Oh, you just want to.
I'm sure those that
There's
probably people that think
opinions
it's
out there,
encroaching,
yes.
but
Yes.
Well, and two, so people know, anything 10 acres or over is exempt.
Yeah.
So that's a big question I have a lot too is, well, why can't you do something with that one? Well, if it's 10 acres or over, it's designated as agriculture, whether they're using it as agriculture or not, doesn't matter. But that 10 acres is kind of that special, special number.
And that's state law. We
That's
have
state law.
no control over that. So.
Item E, county clerk's claim for 2019 vehicle and boat bills. I'm just going to read this. This from Tim York, the county clerk, as required by KRS 133.240, Section 3. The Department of Revenue hereby certifies that the total number of motor vehicles and boat accounts for this county is 49.577 as of January 1, 2020, for which the fiscal court shall pay the county clerk 15 cents for the calculation of a tax bill for each account. The total number of bills as certified above times 0.15 equal to total claim amount to be paid by the fiscal court. 49,577 times 0.15 equals $7,436.55. We just need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the county clerk claim.
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item F is the lease agreement. So Jason is working on that right now. So we'll go ahead and go into item F. And that's-
Okay, so there it is on the screen, under section 3.
Bonnie, you wanted me to make that bigger?
I don't know where that came from.
Did you hear that day?
3A, I just took out, it did say guide, but I just took the word guide out, so that's gone. I added, Chris said something that made me think about this, so I added E, adequately heated or air conditioned to protect the equipment. That wasn't in there before, but Chris mentioned something about that, so I thought that was a good idea. And then 9. County shall hold harmless and indemnify South Marshall Fire Department for any damage or loss of property arising out of the county's occupancy and or use of the leased premises. I think that's good. And then 3, or not 3, but yeah. Chris, you might want to get with the chief, Chris, you might want to get with Chief Searles and just fill that section in.
Okay.
A little bit more detail.
All right. Does anybody got any questions? All right. We would just need an action item on the lease agreement with South Marshall Fire Department.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item G, payment of the bills.
Should pay the bills.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item H, executive session litigation. Need to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll go ahead and call court back to order. There's no further discussion. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.